The death of Stan Newens is something that has shocked a lot of people, because they realise that in Stan's passing, there's a passing of a person who, in a sense, encompasses the lifetime of the labour movement and internationalism ever since the end of the Second World War. I got to know Stan very well over many years. Stan joined the Labour Party and the Labour movement in 1945 after the great election victory. The Labour Party at that time became part of the left activists within the party, Victory for Socialism, Keep Left, and all the groups associated with that, and fought very hard for an internationalist foreign policy for the party. And whilst he, like many others, absolutely supported the achievements of the 1945 government on the domestic scene, there was a very different story in the international strategy of the party. And I think it's something that does need to be examined in the future. And Stan eventually became the MP for Epping. But before that, he'd been a teacher in the East End of London. He had worked on many causes. But even before that, he, when he was given the requirement to do national service after the Second World War, the option was either to join the armed forces or to go and work in a key industry. And he chose to go and work in a key industry. So he worked in the coal mines in North Staffordshire and was a miner for the duration of his national service, and became very active in the National Union of Mine Workers. And they gave him a citation when he left, and he kept in touch with the family that he had lodged with during the time he was working in the mines. And Stan was brilliant at keeping in touch with people all his life. And reading his book, the story of his life, the incredible energy that he put into all his work and all his campaigns, and being the MP for Epping at that time in 1964, re-elected in 1966, was very much part of the group that were critical of Harold Wilson for his political support, but not military support for the United States in Vietnam. And was part of that group that wanted the government to go much further and much faster, particularly on issues such as independence of Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and Zambia. Well, that time, particularly southern Rhodesia, because of the UDI that was declared. And I still have stickers from Liberation at that time, which said, "Talk to the people, not to Smith." Those were the slogans that Liberation, then Movement for Colonial Freedom, put out. And think about it, Stan was involved at that time as well, from the very foundation of Liberation. Sadly, he lost in the election in 1970 to Norman Tebbit. And then there was a constituency boundary change, and he was elected again to Parliament in 1974 for Harlow, and was an amazing MP for Harlow. Lived in Harlow, obviously, and his house is in Harlow, his family's in Harlow, and all his books are in Harlow, of which there are very, very many. And Stan, as the MP again, was part of that very strong left group within that Parliament that actually achieved a great deal. They achieved the industry bill, which Tony Benn piloted through, which gave the opportunity for redistribution of wealth and power. And he made a lot of noise on international issues, because Stan was quintessentially an internationalist person, but realized that to be an internationalist, you also have to be very effective in the community that you've been elected to represent. Otherwise, you're not going to get a hearing on the wider stage. And Stan fully understood that. And lost, unfortunately, when the Labour government went down at the end of that period in 1979. But Stan, undaunted, was always active in the co-op and did his best to ensure the co-op became a strong and thriving commercial organisation, as well as the political link through the Cooperative Party. Then became a member of the European Parliament in 1984, representing London Central, which included my constituency of Islington North. And we paid a very warm tribute to Stan the other evening at the Islington North General Meeting the other evening. And there were many there who remembered Stan for his work in the European Parliament. I think to begin with, he was quite sceptical about the European Parliament because he really wanted to be in the Westminster Parliament, but it gave him a voice and it gave him a platform, and he used it very, very effectively. One who understood the politics and history of Iran, understood the origins of the Iran-Iraq war, and understood the dangers of going into a sort of Cold War, then ultimately the danger of a hot war with Iran. Stan understood internationalism in an amazing way, and he was particularly supportive of the Kurdish people, their right to their self-identity, their right to their existence, their right to their language, and spoke brilliantly at that, at liberation meetings and AGMs and at every event that we organised. And the list of Stan's international work and connection is absolutely endless. He was also personally very generous to Liberation, would give us his time, financial support, and any practical support that we needed. And so Stan is somebody that I have the hugest possible regard for. And I just say two other things. Stan understood the need for the learning of history of our movement. And he was very active in the socialist history groups and socialist history community, because he always said, and he was right, that unless our children in school understand where their powers, where their rights have come from, where their National Health Service comes from, where free education comes from, where council housing comes from, where rights at work protection come from, they were never given from above. They were always won from below by trade union action. And Stan strongly believed that we had to understand that, but also understand individuals. And there are many all over the country, all over the world, who take up causes in their communities, speak up for their community, and are amazingly effective at doing so. And they're the people that we should laud and understand. So I hope that we can have a written series of appreciations, all of our memories of Stan, because many people on this call would have known Stan very well and be very appreciative of everything that he did. Stan lived to a good age. I wanted him to go on a lot longer. I wanted him to see 100. But one of the things I was very pleased to do as leader of the party was to organise a 90th birthday party for Stan in the leader's office in the House of Commons. And Harlow Labour Party came, Stan's family came, Sandra was there, of course, and a very large number of people. And Laura McAlpine, the candidate for Harlow at the last election, who was mentored by Stan in many ways, was there also, and she made a wonderful speech. But the star of the evening was Maggie and her speech on behalf of Liberation. And Maggie spoke very warmly at it because she had been very appreciative of all the help and work that Stan gave to her as General Secretary of Liberation. Indeed, she features many, many times in the index of his book for the great worker that she is. And then Stan spoke at the end, and it was a wonderful speech. It was a wonderful speech of appreciation of Harlow, of Liberation, of the people all around him, and the way in which the powerful right-wing forces will always attack anyone in the labour movement that stands up for the issues that unite us on this call today. And I was always very appreciative of the personal and political support that Stan gave me right up to the end of his life. And in return, we gave him that same support. And there are many people who are very sad at Stan's passing, but have learnt from his life, been emboldened by his life, been strengthened by his life. And let's make sure that liberation becomes even stronger in memory of Stan and the contribution that he made. And through our Project for Peace and Justice, which Christine is one of the directors of and chairs our meetings, we are obviously going to be working together with Liberation, not just in memory of people like Stan, but to build that world of peace and justice in his memory. Christine, thank you very much.